What happens when Liam Neeson, the calm, steady voice the world trusts, steps onto the view and finds himself toe to toe with Joy Behar over one of the most explosive questions in America today? Should social media companies censor political misinformation? At first, everything felt normal. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed Liam with open arms. The audience cheered like they were greeting a national hero. And for a moment, just a moment, it looked like this would be another friendly interview. But then Joy brought up freedom of speech. Instantly, the air changed. Liam leaned forward, voice low, the kind of low that demands silence. He warned that censorship in the wrong hands can turn truth into a weapon, that once someone controls speech, they control thought. Joy didn't flinch. She snapped back that misinformation is poison that lies online, can tear a democracy to pieces if nobody stops them. She argued that tech companies must protect the public before the damage becomes irreversible. Suddenly, the temperature in the room skyrocketed. This wasn't just a talk show anymore. It was a battlefield of ideals. Liam stood for individual liberty, the right to speak, even when the truth is messy. Joy stood for moral protection, the responsibility to shield society from dangerous deception. The audience was frozen. Whoopi's eyes widened. The camera zoomed in. Two powerful perspectives colliding live on national television. By the time the segment ended, you could feel it. People weren't just watching a debate, they were choosing sides. Because when Liam Neeson quietly warns, control over speech is control over thought, you don't just hear him, you believe him. And this time, America was listening.
The lights dimmed slightly as the View's theme music faded. Whoopi Goldberg, sitting at the center of the panel, leaned forward with her usual composure. "Today," she said, "we're joined by a man whose voice alone could stop an argument, or start one." She smiled toward the guest chair. "Please welcome Liam Neeson." The audience erupted into applause. Liam gave a small, polite nod and smiled, that familiar mix of gentleness and quiet strength in his face. "Good morning," he said in that steady Irish baritone, settling into his seat. Joy Behar grinned. "Good morning, Liam. I have to say, I love that you sound like you're about to give a speech before saving the world." The audience laughed. Liam chuckled softly. "I've been told that before," he said, then added, "but I'm here to discuss saving a different kind of world today, the online one." Whoopi raised a brow. "That's right. Today's topic, should social media companies censor political misinformation?" The crowd murmured. They knew this would get heated. Sonny Hostin started first. "Let's be real. Misinformation can cause chaos. We've seen elections distorted, public health debates poisoned, and entire communities divided because of lies spreading online. I think social media companies must act." Joy jumped in. "Exactly. We regulate TV, we regulate radio. Why should Facebook and X be a free-for-all? If someone's spreading political garbage that's proven false, shut it down." Liam listened quietly, his hands folded. Then, in that slow, deliberate way that made everyone lean in, he said, "I understand the concern, truly. Lies can do great damage. But the question is, who decides what's a lie?" The audience went quiet. Sonny nodded cautiously. "That's fair, but there has to be a line. Some things are clearly false." Liam's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "And others aren't. I've seen too many stories labeled as misinformation simply because they didn't fit the dominant narrative. Today it's one side being silenced, tomorrow it's the other." Joy tilted her head, unconvinced. Come on, Liam. You make it sound like there's some evil committee plotting against free speech. These platforms are just trying to protect people from dangerous nonsense. Liam smiled faintly. And I don't doubt some of them mean well, but good intentions can still lead to control. Once you give a company the power to decide what people are allowed to think, you've already lost the principle of free speech. The crowd gave a mixed reaction, some applause, some murmurs of disagreement. Whoopi looked between them. So you're saying no regulation at all? I'm saying truth doesn't need protection from lies. It needs open debate. Sunlight, not censorship. Joy leaned forward, arms crossed. That sounds nice, but people believe lies, Liam. They act on them. You saw what happened during elections and the pandemic. Don't tell me that's harmless. Liam nodded slowly. It's not harmless. But silencing people doesn't change their minds. It drives them underground. They stop trusting the system, and that's when things get dangerous. The studio fell still. Whoopi watched him closely. You've been in some serious films about control and corruption, Liam. You think we're heading in that direction? He sighed, choosing his words. I think we're flirting with it. Every generation believes it's immune to propaganda until it's too late. When companies and governments start deciding which truths are allowed, it stops being about facts. It becomes about power. Joy rolled her eyes slightly. You're giving them too much credit. You think tech companies care about power? They care about ads and clicks, not ideology. He turned to her. Exactly. And when profit mixes with censorship, you get something worse. Truth filtered through what's profitable. That's not protection. That's manipulation. The audience clapped. Sonny nodded, half in agreement. You're making a strong case for transparency, I'll give you that. But can we really afford to let lies spread unchecked? Liam looked directly at her. We can't afford the alternative either. Once speech becomes conditional, truth becomes negotiable. The audience reacted again, this time louder. Whoopi smiled slightly. You're saying censorship itself becomes a lie? That's right, Liam said, because it tells people they're not smart enough to decide for themselves. It treats adults like children. And when you treat people like children, they start behaving like them. Angry, distrustful, rebellious. Joy shook her head dryly. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? People aren't being brainwashed. Liam's gaze stayed steady. Joy, I've lived through propaganda before. I've seen what happens when truth becomes optional. It starts with good intentions and ends with silence. That line hit hard. The audience clapped again, this time standing in some corners of the room. Whoopi raised her hand, smiling at the tension in the air. Well, I think we can all agree this conversation just got real. Joy exhaled, smirking. Oh, it's real all right. I'm just saying if people used common sense online, none of this would be a problem. Liam's tone softened. Common sense is born from freedom, not fear. The crowd applauded again. By now, the polite warmth of the opening had completely evaporated. The studio felt electric. The audience could sense it. This wasn't a talk show exchange anymore. It was a battle between conviction and caution, between the comfort of control and the chaos of liberty. And as the segment neared its next turn, everyone could feel it. This was only the beginning of a much deeper confrontation. The next segment began with tighter camera angles. The energy in the studio had shifted. No more polite smiles, no more soft laughter. Joy Behar sat upright, arms folded, eyes sharp. Liam Neeson remained calm, almost motionless, but there was a quiet fire in his gaze. Whoopi leaned forward, sensing the rising temperature. All right, we're back with Liam Neeson talking about social media censorship and political misinformation. Things got a little passionate before the break. Liam gave a faint smile. Passion's not a bad thing, Whoopi. It means people still care. Joy immediately countered. Sure, but passion doesn't mean you're right. You can be passionately wrong, and the internet's full of that. The audience laughed nervously.
Liam's voice stayed level. That may be true, but truth isn't strengthened by silencing the wrong. It's strengthened by proving it wrong. You don't eliminate darkness by banning it. You turn on the light. Joy let out a sharp breath. Oh, come on, Liam. You sound like a philosopher who's never opened Twitter. The crowd chuckled again. But Liam didn't take the bait. He leaned slightly forward, his tone steady but cutting. I've seen what happens when speech gets controlled, Joy. Not on Twitter, out in the real world. You silence people long enough and they stop believing the truth even when they hear it. Sonny Hostin interjected. But Liam, you can't ignore how powerful misinformation has become. We've seen people radicalized, violence fueled, all from lies spreading unchecked. There has to be some accountability. I nod. There should be accountability for actions, not opinions. If someone commits a crime, prosecute them, but don't criminalize the act of speaking, even if it's ugly. The moment speech requires permission, democracy starts to die. The crowd applauded again, more divided now, some cheering, others frowning. Joy raised her hand, cutting in. Democracy also dies when people can't tell fact from fiction, when conspiracy theories go viral and decent people believe garbage because some anonymous troll told them it's true. Liam's voice deepened. Then teach them, debate them, win them over with truth. You don't protect democracy by treating the public like a mob that can't handle information. Joy shot back. This isn't about treating people like children, Liam. It's about protecting them from manipulation. He turned to her, his eyes steady. Manipulation comes from control, not freedom. The studio gasped at the tension between them. Whoopi stepped in, trying to keep balance. Let me ask something practical. Liam, what do you say to families who've lost loved ones because of dangerous misinformation online? Because to them, this isn't an abstract issue, it's personal. Liam took a breath. His voice softened, but his conviction didn't waver. I say those deaths are tragedies, but we honor them by pursuing truth, not by deciding who's allowed to speak it. Once truth becomes the property of a few, it stops being truth. The audience clapped again. Joy shook her head. You keep talking about freedom like it's sacred, and it is, but freedom without responsibility is chaos, and social media is chaos. You've got people believing that flat earth stuff, fake cures, election hoaxes. You can't just shrug and say, well, freedom. Liam tilted his head. Freedom is messy. It always has been. But censorship doesn't bring order. It breeds resentment. Every time a voice is silenced, 10 more start whispering underground. That's how extremism grows. Sonny frowned. So you'd just let anyone post anything? I'd let people argue, Liam said firmly. Argue, question, challenge. The cure for bad speech is more speech. That's how truth survives. Whoopi was impressed but cautious. That sounds good on paper, but in practice that's a lot of damage before truth catches up. Maybe, but the alternative, having a few people decide what's true, is far worse. It's the road to obedience, not enlightenment. The audience applauded louder now. Some people stood. Joy rolled her eyes, clearly frustrated. You talk like the internet's a Greek forum of philosophers. It's not. It's chaos, it's hate, it's lies that ruin lives. Somebody has to draw the line. Liam looked right at her. And who gets the pencil, Joy? That question hit like a punch. The audience roared with applause. Joy blinked, momentarily caught off guard, then smiled tightly. You're clever, I'll give you that, but this isn't a movie, Liam. This is the real world. Liam's tone grew heavier. I know the real world, Joy. I've seen what happens when governments and corporations control speech for the greater good. It always ends the same way. Someone's truth becomes someone else's silence. Sonny leaned in. So what's your solution then? Just hope people figure it out? Liam nodded. Yes, because people eventually do figure it out. Give them credit, give them freedom. Let them fall, learn, and rise again. We can't raise a generation of thinkers if we never let them think. That line drew thunderous applause. Joy's voice rose over the noise. You say that like ignorance is noble. People aren't all equipped to separate fact from fiction. That's why we need moderation. Liam's voice stayed calm but sharper now. Then educate them how to think critically. Don't remove the words, educate the mind. Education takes time, Joy shot back. Lies spread faster than truth. Then make truth stronger, Liam said simply. The crowd erupted again, some cheering, some booing. The tension was almost unbearable. Whoopi leaned back, smiling slightly. Well, this is what happens when an actor with a conscience meets a comedian with conviction. Joy smirked, looking at Liam. You're used to scripts, Liam. Maybe stick to them. The jab hung in the air. The audience gasped. Liam smiled, not angry, but quietly unshaken. The truth doesn't need a script, Joy. It just needs courage. The applause was deafening. Whoopi looked to the cameras, eyes wide, trying to bring things back. All right, we're going to take a break before someone says something they can't take back. But it was too late. The spark had become a blaze. The audience could feel it. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a clash of principles, of two worldviews colliding on live television. And as the show cut to commercial, Joy looked at Liam with a mix of irritation and curiosity. Liam just sat quietly, hands folded, eyes calm, like a man who knew this storm was only beginning.
When the show returned from break, the atmosphere in the View studio was electric. The chatter in the audience hadn't died down. Some was still murmuring about Liam's last line. The truth doesn't need a script, it just needs courage. It had hit hard, especially in a world where everyone online seems to be performing. Whoopi looked uneasy but composed. We're back, she said, her tone measured, and things have gotten a bit intense today. Joy Behar smiled tightly, clearly ready to reassert control. That's an understatement. Liam here thinks the internet should be a free-for-all. No guardrails, no limits, just chaos wrapped in the flag of free speech. Liam turned toward her, calm but firm. That's not what I said, Joy. I said the cure for lies isn't silence, it's more truth. Same difference, Joy snapped. You can't drown out lies fast enough when half the country believes them. Then we've failed as educators, Liam replied softly, not as censors. The audience clapped, though the tension made the applause sound nervous. Sunny leaned forward, her tone less combative but deeply concerned. Liam, I understand what you're saying, but when misinformation leads to violence or people refusing medical treatment that could save their lives, don't platforms have a moral duty to intervene? Liam nodded slowly. They have a duty to provide context, not control. Once they decide what's right for you to see, they own your thoughts. Joy crossed her arms. Oh, please, nobody's trying to own your thoughts. We're trying to stop lunatics from convincing your aunt that the moon landing was fake. That got a laugh, but Liam didn't smile. I don't underestimate lunatics, Joy, but I do underestimate people's ability to learn from them. Truth doesn't need protection, it needs presence. Joy's tone hardened. That's poetic but naive. You've lived in Hollywood too long. Out here, truth gets buried under clicks and algorithms. You're dreaming of a world that doesn't exist. Liam leaned in. His voice dropped to a near whisper, yet everyone could hear it. Maybe I am, but we don't build a better world by trusting fear. We build it by trusting people. For a moment, even Joy didn't respond. There was a silence that carried weight. Then she exhaled. So you're saying if a lie kills someone, that's just the price of freedom? Liam's jaw tightened. I'm saying freedom will always have a price, but the cost of losing it is far higher. The camera caught Joy blinking, her expression flickering between defiance and discomfort. Sunny jumped in again. You make it sound simple, but it's not. People aren't living in shared realities anymore. There's no common ground left to debate on. Liam looked toward the audience. That's exactly why we need debate, Sunny. Because when you stop talking, you start dividing. Applause filled the room again, louder this time. Joy looked out toward the crowd, frustrated. You all cheer that now, but you'll be the first to complain when your kids read garbage online that turns them against everything you taught them. Liam didn't flinch. That's parenting, Joy. You teach them how to think, not what to think. That hit her. Hard. For a moment, her face fell, not with anger, but with something personal. She took a breath,
her voice quieter. I raised my son in a world where you couldn't tell what was real anymore. Every day I worried about what he was seeing, who he was listening to. Don't lecture me on parenting, Liam. The audience went silent. It wasn't a joke. It was genuine emotion. Liam softened, realizing the line he had touched. I wasn't trying to lecture you, Joy. I respect that, truly. But fear can't guide us forever. If we let fear make the rules, then the manipulators have already won. Joy looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. You really believe that? He said quietly, I've lived it. I grew up in Belfast during the Troubles. People were censored, silenced, labeled dangerous for their views. And every time someone was told to shut up for the greater good, the violence got worse. That's why I'm wary of control. I've seen what it does. The studio fell still. The weight of that memory changed the tone of everything. Sonny's voice softened. So for you, this isn't just theory. Liam shook his head. It never is. When people can't speak, they stop trusting each other. When they stop trusting, they start fighting. Joy exhaled, her tone less sharp now. I get that, but the internet isn't Belfast. It's not politics and bombs. It's memes and trolls. Maybe, but the principle's the same. You can't build peace by silencing chaos. You build it by facing it. The audience clapped again, longer this time. Whoopi finally spoke up, her tone calm but thoughtful. You know, Liam, that's a powerful point, but people are scared. They see lies spreading faster than the truth and feel helpless. What would you say to them? He looked directly at her. I'd tell them that truth doesn't vanish just because it's outnumbered. It endures. And if we keep speaking it, even when it's unpopular, it'll find its way back. Joy glanced at him, half a smile playing at her lips. You sound like you should be giving a speech at the United Nations. He smiled slightly. I'm just speaking as a man who's seen too much fear disguised as protection. Whoopi leaned back, nodding. Well, I'll tell you this. People will be talking about this one. The audience applauded again. But Joy wasn't done. You know what worries me, Liam? You make it sound noble to let everyone say whatever they want, but you're not the one cleaning up the mess afterwards. He turned to her. Maybe not, but if we start burning books because we fear what's inside them, we'll forget how to read altogether. The crowd erupted again, some cheering, some booing. Joy threw up her hands. You and your metaphors. You should have been a poet instead of an actor. He smiled faintly. I'd rather people think than applaud. That line landed with quiet power. Even Joy didn't have a comeback this time. The camera panned out slowly as Whoopi wrapped up. All right, everyone, we're going to take another break, but I think we can all agree this is one of those conversations that reminds us why we have shows like this. The music swelled, the audience applauded, but backstage, Joy and Liam's eyes met again. No hatred, just recognition. They'd both exposed something raw, something real. And when the cameras cut to commercial, you could still feel it, the unspoken truth hanging in the air. This wasn't just a debate about censorship anymore. It had become a mirror for everything America was struggling with: fear, freedom, and the fragile trust in between.
When the cameras came back from commercial, something in the air had shifted. The audience was quieter, almost bracing themselves. Joy Behar sat a little straighter, her smile thin and deliberate. Liam Neeson, meanwhile, looked composed, but visibly weighed by what had been said. Whoopi tried to lighten the mood. All right, we're back. Things have gotten a bit heavy here on The View, but that's what happens when we talk about truth and freedom in the same sentence. Laughter bubbled through the crowd, but it didn't quite land. Joy looked over at Liam, voice calm but loaded. Before the break, Liam said censorship can destroy trust. But what about when a lack of it destroys lives? Liam turned toward her. You're talking about consequences, and I agree, they're real, but the solution can't be control. Then what is it? Joy pressed. Because right now the loudest people online are also the most dangerous. You give them a microphone and they'll use it to burn everything down. Liam's voice stayed low. And who decides who's dangerous? You? Me? Mark Zuckerberg? That power changes people, Joy. always has. The audience murmured, sensing the rise in tension again. Sonny leaned forward. Liam, you're saying control is dangerous, but letting lies spread can be just as destructive. There has to be a middle ground. There is, Liam said simply. It's called responsibility, not censorship. Responsibility starts with us, not with the platforms. Joy gave a sharp laugh. That sounds lovely, Liam, but it's fantasy. People aren't responsible. They share things without thinking. They react emotionally. They don't fact-check. It's chaos. And when chaos kills, we can't just say, oh, well, freedom of speech. Liam's eyes hardened. Then teach them better, Joy. Don't muzzle them. That line hit the table like a hammer. Joy straightened, her tone turning colder. You sound like a man who's never seen what real misinformation can do. Liam's expression didn't change. I've seen propaganda start wars. I've seen censorship end lives. I know both sides of that coin, Joy. The room went still. Whoopi interjected softly. Let's keep it civil, all right? But Joy wasn't done. You keep bringing up your past, Liam. But you're talking about government censorship, not the internet. Nobody's throwing people in jail for bad tweets. No, Liam said quietly, they're just erasing them, and sometimes erasure is a quieter kind of prison. A hush fell over the room. Joy rolled her eyes. Come on, that's traumatic. Liam leaned in slightly, his voice colder now. No, Joy, it's realistic. We've created a world where a person can lose their job, their reputation, their livelihood because a corporation decided their words were inconvenient. Some in the audience clapped, while others booed. The tension had turned sharp, cutting. Sonny tried to calm it down. Liam, I think what Joy's saying is there's a line between free speech and incitement. Maybe it's not about silencing opinions, but protecting people. Liam nodded, and that line should be drawn by the law, not a tech company. We already have laws against hate, violence, defamation. The problem is platforms now act as judge and jury without accountability. Joy threw up her hands. So what, we just let people lie and call it freedom? Let politicians manipulate voters with fake stories and deep fakes? Liam's tone sharpened. We let people see what's being said and then challenge it. Sunlight disinfects. Shadows deceive. That line across the audience was audible. Joy leaned in, her patience gone. You talk about sunlight, but people are blinded by it. They don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want validation. That's why misinformation spreads, because it feels good. Liam nodded slowly. You might be right. But censorship won't make people crave truth. It'll just teach them to hide their lies better. Joy's voice cracked with anger. You're defending the indefensible. And you're justifying the intolerable, Liam replied, his voice rising for the first time. Every society that's tried to control speech in the name of protection has ended up silencing dissent. You can't rewrite human nature. You can only reason with it. The audience erupted. Some clapping, others shouting. Whoopi raised her hands, but it was too late. The energy had tipped from debate to confrontation. Joy glared at Liam. You're twisting this into something it's not. Nobody's trying to be Big Brother. We're just saying there should be limits. And I'm saying once you draw those limits, someone will always push them further. Today it's hate speech, tomorrow it's disagreement. That's how censorship grows. It's never enough. Ana Navarro jumped in, her tone fierce. But Liam, you can't pretend that free speech exists in a vacuum. The internet amplifies harm in ways we've never seen before. Liam turned to her, nodding respectfully. And I don't deny that, but you don't fight an echo by silencing the voice. You fight it by speaking louder with reason. Joy threw her hands, exasperated. You make it sound so easy, but in the real world, people die because of lies. Liam paused, then spoke quietly, almost mournfully. People also die when truth is hidden. The room froze. That silence was heavy, the kind that follows something no one wants to unpack. Whoopi finally broke it, her voice low. That's a powerful point, Liam. But Joy wasn't ready to concede. Her tone dropped, quieter but burning. So what's your solution? Just let everyone talk until the world burns? Liam met her eyes. No, let everyone talk until we learn to listen again. The audience applauded, standing this time. Joy didn't smile. She looked down for a moment, then up at Liam. You're idealistic. I'll give you that. He smiled faintly. Maybe. But sometimes ideals are the last things that keep us human. The applause swelled again. Whoopi leaned forward, closing out the segment. All right, folks, we're clearly not solving this one today, but if nothing else, I think we've been reminded how dangerous and how necessary these conversations really are. The crowd rose to their feet, clapping, shouting, cheering. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms but smirking slightly. You really don't back down, do you? Liam chuckled softly. Neither do you. Whoopi smiled at both of them, and that's why this show still works. The cameras faded out, but the tension, the ideas, the clash of freedom and fear, they lingered long after the credits rolled.
When the cameras finally cut, the audience's applause lingered longer than usual. People were standing, some clapping out of admiration, others still arguing quietly among themselves. The View had always thrived on spirited debate, but this one had gone deeper. It hadn't just been political, it had been personal. Liam Neeson removed his earpiece and set it gently on the table. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried that weight, like a man who had said what he needed to, even if it cost him comfort. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, exhaling. You know, Liam, she said, her tone finally softening, you're a lot calmer than I'd be if the whole internet disagreed with me. Liam gave a quiet smile. That's because I've lived long enough to know disagreement isn't the same as hate. Joy chuckled, shaking her head. You make it sound simple. It is simple, but not easy, Liam said. The crew started clearing the set, but Whoopi waved them off for a moment. She turned to Liam. You know, you really struck a nerve out there. I think people need to hear that, especially now. Liam nodded. That's why I said it. I don't like arguments, Whoopi, but I do like truth. And lately, I think we're all too scared to hear it unless it flatters us. Sonny, still thoughtful, spoke up. You know what stuck with me? When you said truth doesn't vanish, it endures. That's powerful. Liam smiled faintly. I believe that. Lies burn bright and fast. Truth takes longer, but it outlasts the fire. Joy, for once, wasn't defensive. Her tone softened in a way that felt almost vulnerable. You know, I grew up believing free speech meant you could say whatever you wanted, but maybe I forgot that it also means you've got to listen to things you don't like. That's exactly it. Freedom without listening isn't freedom. It's noise. The room went quiet again, but it wasn't tense this time. It was reflective. Even the crew had slowed down, listening from behind cameras and lights. Whoopi broke the silence, her voice low and steady. You know, Liam, I think what you said will make a lot of people uncomfortable, but maybe that's the point. Liam nodded. Growth usually is, but that's how we find balance again. We stop shouting, and we start hearing each other. Joy laughed softly. Well, don't expect Twitter to listen. They'll probably take one clip, twist it, and turn you into a meme by lunchtime. Liam smirked. They already have, I'm sure. But maybe one person out there will watch the full thing. Maybe they'll think before they tweet. That's enough for me. Whoopi leaned back, smiling with a kind of quiet pride. You handled this table better than most, Liam, I'll give you that. He looked at her and said simply, Respect goes a long way, Whoopi, even in disagreement. Joy met his eyes across the table. You know, you're lucky you've got that movie star calm. If I said half of what you said today, I'd be trending for the wrong reasons. He laughed softly. Then say it anyway. Maybe that's how it changes, when brave people speak without fear. For a moment, everyone just sat there, no arguing, no grandstanding, just a rare, honest silence between people who had fought hard but listened harder. As Liam stood up to leave, he shook Joy's hand. He said, You fought well. She smiled. You too, though I still think you're wrong. He grinned. That's the beauty of freedom, isn't it? She laughed, nodding. Yeah, I suppose it is. As he walked off the set, the audience began filing out, still buzzing. The debate would dominate social media for days. Clips would go viral. Headlines would twist the story. But for those who watched the full exchange, something deeper had landed. Liam's words, "Truth doesn't vanish, it endures," echoed long after he was gone. And for once, The View had lived up to its name, not just offering opinions, but forcing America to look at itself, unfiltered and unafraid. If you liked this powerful moment, make sure to subscribe for more celebrity clashes, emotional showdowns, and unforgettable TV debates. Now tell us in the comments, do you think social media should censor political misinformation, or does freedom of speech still come first?